Going to talk a little bit about the BarPerfect process. Hello, I'm Steve Leosi, and I'm the founder of BarPerfect. And David Rule, a former student of mine, is now my partner. David came to me after having failed the exam, I believe 4 or 5 times. He was using the big courses, the mass-produced courses, and really wasn't being taught the way to write, the way to analyze, and really the proper way to attack the exam. He was so overwhelmed with all of the data and all of the minutia that the big courses paralyze you with, and he needed a different way of doing it. Well, he came to me. He used the methodology that I developed when I was a faculty tutor at Chapman Law School. Actually, I developed it long before that. I was tutoring students my first year of law school and fellow students, and I was helping a lot of them get off of academic probation. I helped a lot of them make dean's lists, make law review, whatnot. And the reason is I simplified really what law school was all about. And the bar exam is really simple when you really get down to it and understand what the test is. It's not testing per se your legal knowledge. Yes, of course, you have to know the law, but if all you do is know the law and don't know how to craft an essay response where your response conveys legal knowledge within your analysis, you'll never pass. You have to think the right way to pass the bar exam. So we teach you how to think the right way, not just memorize the right way, because memorization, to us, rote memorization, is a small part of the process in getting ready for the exam. Like I said, of course you do need to know the law, but if that's all you know, if that's all you do, if that's how you prepare, you will not pass. There are people who spend 14 hours a day in the library and all they're doing is memorizing black letter law. And they'll fail, and they'll finally make their way to Bar Perfect after trying the big courses 3, 4, 5 times. They'll finally make their way to Bar Perfect, and I'll ask them, how many essays did you write to get ready? 3, 4, 5. Wrong answer. You will never pass that way. Because that student is placing the emphasis on legal knowledge rather than developing the skill set that passes the exam. Skillful candidates pass. It's that simple. You can memorize rule statements, memorize horn books, but if you don't know how to think analytically and write analytically, you will never pass this exam. And writing analytically is not merely regurgitating the fact pattern in lieu of analysis. Writing analytically involves conveying legal knowledge within your analysis. There are courses out there that say, yeah, you can write with the rule or you can weave it. It's not an or you can weave it. If you feel you have to write with mechanical IRAC stating a separate rule statement, that's fine, but it's not or you can weave it. You have to weave legal knowledge within your analysis. You have to weave the elements in your analysis, whether you write with the rule statement or not. And what I tell students, take a black marker to your rule statement. Can we tell that you know the law by the writing that's left behind? Or did you simply regurgitate the fact pattern thinking that you're analyzing? That's why students remain C students in law school, and that's why students do not pass the bar exam. They don't know how to write in an analytical fashion. So we place the emphasis on making you leave our course with a skill set that's going to make sure you pass the exam. Okay? I knew I was going to pass the bar exam. And I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm saying this to impress upon you. I know you've heard that phrase on infomercials late at night. But no, I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm saying it to impress upon you. The skill set is what passes the exam. And I knew I had the skill set. And I honestly didn't study all that much for the bar exam because I developed my skill set as a law student. Most law students don't do that. Most law students do not graduate law school with the skill set that is going to pass the exam. So again, skillful candidates pass. You better bring skills to this exam. not just the ability to memorize. There's a saying, monkeys memorize, attorneys analyze. So anyway, going back to me, I knew I was going to pass the exam. And as I was taking the exam, I honestly was saying to myself, this is all it is. This needs to be much, much more difficult. I didn't think it was a difficult test at all because I mastered the thought process and mastered the writing skill that was going to pass the exam. And I'm sure a lot of you are saying, well, you mastered it through law school. I didn't master it through law school. Am I going to be able to master it to pass this exam? The answer is yes. Our course will have you writing differently in 1 week. We'll have you writing the right way in 1 week. Our analytical writing seminar will do that for you. So you will leave BarPerfect with the skill set necessary to pass. Now, as far as the law is concerned, we're not a fan of 12-hour lectures on property, 12-hour lectures on common law. Now, we're going to talk about property in 2, 3, 4 hours tops. We're going to talk about common law in 2, 3, 4 hour tops. And we're going to learn a law by working with the law. You're going to work through our essay bundles, and as you work through our essay bundles, you're going to learn the law. So the best way to learn the law is by working with the law, not just simply memorizing a convisor or whatever outline you're using out there. So memorization, yeah, it's part of the process, but rote memorization really isn't part of the BarPerfect process. We're not going to have you spend 2 solid weeks memorizing rule statements. Not a very good use of your time. And you'll realize that as you're working through all of our exercises, all of our essays, and as you listen to me walking you through the issue quests, you're going to realize after all of those activities, you know the law. You know enough law to pass the exam. And what I tell students, let's know 80% of everything 100%. Now, what I mean by that is, do not drive yourself crazy thinking you have to know everything, because you don't. I did not know everything when I took the exam. I know it now. I've basically been working or studying for the bar exam, if you will, for basically 25 years now. So yeah, I know the law deeply, but you don't have to know it deeply, deeply like a hornbook level. You don't have to know it as well as a law professor. Okay? And speaking of law professors, when I was a faculty tutor at Chapman Law School, one of the professors there, Harvard grad, he wasn't a licensed California attorney. He took the exam. He failed. He knew the law. But what didn't he know how to do? Convey legal knowledge within his analysis. Okay? The dean of Stanford Law School failed the California bar exam. Probably because she was cocky. Probably because she thought she just needed to show up. But no, I guarantee you, she didn't know how to write an essay response for the California bar examiners. Okay? So again, skillful candidates pass. The dean of Stanford Law School did not bring the skill set necessary to pass, nor did the Harvard law professor or the law professor at Chapman Law School who graduated from Harvard. He did not bring the skill set necessary to pass the exam. Both of those people flunked. I passed on my first try. Does that mean I'm smarter than the dean of Stanford Law School? Does that mean I'm smarter than the law professor who I worked with at Chapman Law School as a faculty tutor? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But all I'm trying to tell you is I obviously had a better skill set in place than the dean of Stanford Law School had in place, than the Harvard grad law professor at Chapman had in place. So I can't stress upon you enough. Skillful candidates pass. So let's ask ourselves, what skills do we need to bring to the test? Well, the skill of analysis and the skill of analytical writing, an analytical thought process to pass the MBEs, analytical writing to pass the essays, analytical writing and analytical thought process to pass the performance exams. It's all about a skill set. And you have to understand that, because if you don't understand that, if you think the bar examiners simply want to know how much law you know, you will not prepare properly. You will think it's a legal knowledge test, and you will think all you have to do is regurgitate your legal knowledge to pass. Wrong. And the reason people fail is because they really don't understand the essence of the California bar exam. The bar examiners presume you know the law. They don't really want to know how good your rule statements can be. They're not really interested in how well you were able to memorize. They're interested in, do you think analytically? If a client walks into your office and tells you a story, which by the way is a fact pattern, an essay is basically a client walking into your office rather, and telling you a story. And the bar examiners want to know, if they walk into your office and tell you a story, are you going to be able to tell them what the issues are? Are you going to be able to analyze your way through it in a courtroom? Or, in all of the memorandums and all of the points and authorities you write, getting ready for the case. So that's what a fact pattern is. A client walking into your office. Bar examiners are going to want to know, do you know what the issues are? Can you tell your client what the issues are? And can you analyze your way properly through the facts? Okay? So I can't stress upon you enough. This is a test of skill. You got to bring a skill set to pass this test. You can't just bring legal knowledge. If all you have is legal knowledge, you will fail. And that's why so many students complain and cry and whine in all of those stupid chat rooms that involve the bar exam. I knew the law, how come I failed? Because you didn't know how to analyze, because you didn't know how to write analytically. But you think you did. You had all of the right head notes, you had all the right rule statements, but again, the way you write underneath the rule statements determines whether you pass or fail the exam. I'm going to say that again. The way you write underneath the rule statements determines whether or not you pass or fail the exam. Do you got that? I wrote with no rule statements when I took the exam. Why? Because I was skillful at conveying legal knowledge within my analysis. What's the key word to IRAC? Analysis. IRAC. What are the two most important letters of IRAC? The I and the A. Issue analysis. Because if you're analyzing properly, your knowledge of the rule is going to be very apparent. Did you hear that? If you're analyzing properly, your knowledge of the rule, your knowledge of the law is going to be very apparent. So I passed the bar exam without any rule statements. You know why? Because my analysis made it very apparent to the bar grader that I knew the law. Okay? So have you ever watched Law and Order? Have you ever been in a courtroom and you see the attorneys arguing? Do they stand before the judge and say, Your Honor, I'm going to give you IRAC right now? The issue is, the rule is, blah, blah, blah. No, they simply start analyzing. And you can tell by the way they're analyzing that they know the law. Okay? So many of you have been brainwashed into thinking you need to write with rule statements. Fine, write with rule statements. That's okay. But the way you write underneath your rule statements is going to determine whether you pass or fail the exam. So many of you make it to BarPerfect. You find your way to our door, so to speak, because you failed 4 or 5 times. And the reason you're failing is because, hey, you might know the law, but most of you don't know the law as well as you think you do. Trust me. But let's say you do know the law. If you know the law and you're failing, what do you think the problem is? Let's say you're walking Hornbook and you're failing. What do you think the problem is? The problem is you don't have an analytical thought process. The problem is, if you do have an analytical thought process, you don't know how to put it on paper. So, those of you out there saying, I know the law, how come I'm failing? Gee, why do you think you're failing if you know the law? Okay? I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Let's say you do know the law. Let's say you know the law as well as a law professor, and you're still failing. Why are you failing? It's not the law, is it? You know the law, but you're failing. So let's ask ourselves, you're failing, but you know the law? Number one, you probably don't know the law as well as you think you do, and trust me, you don't. Or let's say you do know the law. Let's say you have a law professor knowledge of the law and you're failing. Well, what's the missing link, do you think? It's the analytical thought process. the ability to convey your analytical thought process on a piece of paper, whether you're writing it by hand or using your laptop. Okay? So I can't stress enough, and the reason I sound heated and excited about this is because students don't know this. The problem with the bar review industry, there are credible sources giving bullshit information. Okay? Thinking you must have a beautiful rule statement. Bullshit. I pass without rule statements. When I was a faculty tutor at Chapman Law School and I gave students practice exams to write, I would tell them no rule statements allowed. What was I forcing them to do? Analyze. It feels really good. It feels really wonderful when we're filling up our blue book with all of this law. Oh, I'm doing great. I'm telling them all the law I know. There's 0 points for rule statements. Yeah, newsflash, there's 0 points for rule statements. Try filling up your blue book with nothing but head notes and rule statements. Tell me how that goes for you. Okay? Or try filling your blue book up with nothing but issue headings, issue head notes, and analysis. That person's going to pass. Okay? So if you're one of those people wearing a tinfoil hat who thinks you have to write with rule statements, fine. But the way you write underneath the rule determines whether you pass or fail. And for all you rule writers, if you're running out of time, what do? Do you put a head note, rule statement, head note, rule statement, head note, rule statement? Now, that's when you stop writing with rules and you do issue, head note, analysis, issue, head note, analysis. Drop the rule statements if you're running out of time. They're not going to want to see your head note followed by nothing but a rule statement. You understand? Most of you have not heard this anywhere, and I know that because most law professors don't even know what the fuck IRAC is. They're insistent that it include a separate statement of law, and that's complete bullshit. Beverly Rubens is basically the person who invented IRAC, so to speak, on the law school level. And she said, I never meant for it to be so mechanical. The issue is, the rule is, the analysis is, the conclusion is. She said, all that's meant by IRAC is make sure the issue, rule, analysis, and conclusion are contained in your answer. But we don't need a separate statement of law to do that. If you are analyzing properly, your legal knowledge is going to be apparent. So I stress this so much because there's so much misinformation out there. There really is. And I think it ensures that a lot of people will simply fail. Okay? So you have to change your understanding of the test and what's actually being tested. I call it a test. It's an exam, obviously. But you have to change your understanding of the exam in order to prepare for it properly. If you think the bar examiners just want to know how much law you know, they just want to know how well you can memorize, you're going to be taking this for 20 years. Okay? You have to understand the bar examiners want to see a thought process. They want to see reasoning skills. They don't want to see how well you memorized. Okay? I'm going to get off my soapbox now, but I want to welcome you to the process. It's going to be a much different process than you have ever engaged. I guarantee you that. If you did Barbary, if you did Kaplan, or whatever else is out there mass-produced wise, you're going to be shown a process that works if you work it. You have to give this your best. I didn't, because I studied for the bar exam beginning my first day of law school. Yeah, that's the truth. My best friend was a lawyer before me. He went to law school, I believe, 8 years before me, and he told me exactly how to do it, exactly how to get through it. He says, dude, graduate with the skill set that passes the exam so you don't have to really learn the skill set when it comes bar review time. And I took his advice. I wrote 10 to 15 practice exams for every final exam I took. What'd you do? Write 10 or 15 your whole law school career? See the pattern here? People who are failing, for whatever reason, graduated law school without the skill set in place. And because of this mechanical IRAC bullshit, all they do is regurgitate the fact pattern thinking that they're analyzing. So in the analytical writing seminar, you're going to learn the difference between listing facts and using facts. Okay? People who fail merely list the facts. They regurgitate the fact pattern thinking that they're analyzing. Okay? That's not how you pass. That's called fact identification. Identifying the facts is differently than using the facts, and the analytical writing seminar is going to teach you that. So like I said, this is going to be a much different process for you. It's actually going to be a fun process for you because you're going to realize early on in the process, 7-10 days, that you're involved in something that's actually going to make you pass the exam. And that's going to be exciting for you. And you're going to go into the exam, if you do everything you're supposed to do in our course and put the emphasis on leaving our program with a skill set in place, you're going to go take the California bar exam knowing you're going to pass. I did, and I know you can do it too.